Jersey's history is often told through its landmarks. Montauk Guy, Elizabeth Castle, Hoop B, the war tunnels. They give us the really big moments. But the island's real story is smaller, more nuanced, more human. It's in the houses where people lived, where children were born, couples were married, families gathered around tables, arguments happened behind closed doors, where grief sat quietly in a bedroom, and where life carried on the next morning. Hidden Homes is about finding those places and listening, not just to the stones, but to the people who shaped them and were shaped by them. Because when you understand the stories inside homes, you start to understand the island in a completely different way.
You cannot understand Jersey without understanding its Norman heritage. It goes through all facets of the island, from the buildings, the road names, the law, the language, but more importantly, the blood. More importantly than that, it goes through my blood. My Norman heritage is reflected in my middle name, which is Le Carpentier, which is directly translated, funnily enough, to carpenter. Now, that dates back to the early 17th century and reflects my Norman farming heritage.
Harry, it's enough about you. Enough about you. The place that we're visiting now actually goes far, far deeper. And it goes back to 1,000 years ago, almost to the very day. And you've got a great duke, Robert the Magnificent, 26 years old, stood astride his castle. He looks down into the fields nearby and sees a local tanner's daughter, revealing her ankles. And he gets quite excited. She's an attractive young lady called Helena. And he gets a messenger boy to say, invite her through the back door into my castle at Fosse in Normandy. She sends a message back saying, I'm certainly not going through the back door. If you want me, I go through the front door. And so began a relationship, and they would conceive a child. That child would grow up to be William the Conqueror, who conducted the last successful land invasion of England. And he had a very special person with him, a person that was his crossbow bearer. And the French or Norman name for crossbow bearer is La Barlestier. Do you want to go find out a bit more about them?
Not really, mate. I'm more interested in the house, but you can continue.
Okay, come with me. The La Barlestier family has an ancient connection with Jersey that goes right back to those days of William the Conqueror. And the La Barlestier family were a normal, common farming family. And they operated out of a principal house, Orgray Manor. Orgray Manor is now the Jersey Zoo. And right next door, we have the beautiful La Fosse in Trinity that also passed into La Barlestier hands in the 17th century. So let's go take a look. One of the other great pieces of Norman inheritance that we've got in this island are date and marriage stones. They really help us zero in on when these properties were built or when significant events like marriages happened in them. And here we've got the oldest date stone in La Fosse. As you can see, 1668. We've got the initials PLB and AG. This is the marriage of Philippe La Barlestier and André. And André brought with her into that marriage this property. And so this property in 1668 became part of the La Barlestier family story. And that story continues to this day. There's not only descendants in Jersey, one of the descendants has just recently won the Grand Prix for F1 in Barcelona. And he is the most successful F1 driver of all time. His name is Lewis Hamilton. His mother is a La Barlestier, and her great-grandfather, Eric, was born in Jersey, and they can trace their ancestry all the way back to Philippe here.
The name of this home, Fosse, actually gives you a very, very good clue to the mindset of construction back in the early 17th century when the first part of this property was built. Fosse means the ditch or the hollow, loosely. And what that entails is that they built the house in a depression in order to keep it safe from inclement weather. It also means that the orientation, which is southwest on this property, means it gets sunlight all day. Don't forget, they had no real form of central heating, anything like that. It was just fireplaces. More on that later. So as the house evolved, it also evolved in the same ditch, the same orientation. Now, that is very, very clever, considering that they weren't even bothered with aesthetics. And as I said at Bushy Farm, they were onto something anyway, because damn, that's a pretty house. Before we go inside, I just want to talk a little bit about the construction back in the day in the early 17th century, because it was a little bit different to what we do nowadays when we're expecting big windows and lots of light. If you notice the windows, they are very small. The reason they were very small is so that they kept heat in. Otherwise, if they had the big windows, it'd be really, really cold and they'd have to keep the fires lit all day long. Another really unique feature, if I point you to the chimneys, are these protrusions or steps coming out the chimney. They, funnily enough, are called witches' steps. According to Jersey law, witches gathered overnight and flew to their gathering called a sabbat. These steps were put in place for them to have places to rest on their journey to their gathering. Therefore, the witches wouldn't bother you, put you in potions, things like that. However, a little bit more mundane, the real reason for them, the original roof of this part of the house would have been thatch. Those protrusions there are to stop rainwater gathering on the joins with the chimney, therefore less likely to flood. Thatched roofs were eventually replaced by slate. So there you go.
So I'm sat beneath another of the beautiful granite fireplaces in this lovely 17th century farmstead to tell you a story about what was going on in the world around Jersey at the time that this became a house and people were living here. The Anglo-Dutch War was raging and France was threatening to join the Dutch in this war against the British. So Jersey was vulnerable, and our militia weren't quite up to scratch. They'd grown soft according to the British government. So the British government sent us one of the hardest generals that they had, a veteran of the English Civil War. He was completely illiterate, but my God, he knew how to drill and to create a disciplined militia. So he arrived in this island. He was Welsh. His name was Thomas Morgan, and he made enemies of everyone. He drilled the militia to within an inch of their lives, and if anyone complained, he would threaten to cleave their skull. In one occasion, the Constable of St. Martin's complained at this treatment he was doling out, and he chased after him with his cane to try and give him a good thrashing. He hated speeches, and in the States Chamber, when a speech lasted more than a minute, he would loudly get up, leave the chamber, slam the door and pace the corridor upstairs, smoking his pipe until that speech was ended. Thomas Morgan was not liked, but he got us ready to face any peril that might be coming our way. He would die in Jersey in 1679. He would leave us the island's first pier off St. Aubyn's Fort, and he'd asked for his bowels to be interred in the town church, and his body was taken home to Wales and the valleys where he belonged. As soon as he died, hundreds of complaints and accusations arose against him. No one was brave enough to say them to his face. However, he was obviously quite a scary prospect, but also he had a very famous nephew. His nephew was probably the most feared man alive at that period. He'd sold himself into indentured servitude to gain passage to the New World. He got out after 3 years, escaped, and became the most devastatingly violent pirate in Caribbean history, laying waste to Panama City in 1671. The atrocities he committed were so bad, King Charles brought him back, locked him up in the Tower. But then when he realised that the royal purse was getting a good amount of money and kickbacks from this piratical activity, he released him, knighted him, and sent him back to the Caribbean as governor of Jamaica, where he died many years later, having drunk too much rum. 200 years later, a distillery was bought in Jamaica, and they named their rum after this man, Captain Henry Morgan. So every time you drink Captain Morgan's rum, think back to the 17th century in Jersey and his uncle, Thomas, making sure that we are drilled and we've got good discipline, but more importantly, that we are safe.
I'm now in the oldest part of the house, which has still the original beams. These are probably harder than concrete. What this house has that is truly, truly, truly unique is it doesn't just have one amazing fireplace, it has 6. Yes, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This fireplace was covered up by the previous owners. So when the original owners opened it up, they found on the back of the partition here that was covering it, a note from the builder. And it said, "I am very, very, very sorry for covering up this beautiful fireplace. They made me do it." D-Day occurred on June the 6th, 1944, and it was a pivotal moment in history. What I want to talk about is not that day exactly, but what happened after. So Winston Churchill had an operation called Operation Mulberry, and the idea is they build these huge floating harbours out of teak, and then they'd assemble them off the beach of 2 landing beaches, Omaha and Gold Beach, and then they'd sink them to allow troops, support artillery, support armour, supplies, to back up the frontline troops that had already rolled over the German defences. Now, it was a huge success. After the war, they had to sell the Mulberry harbours. So what they did was they put them out on the market. And the owner of this house, a Mr. Massey, decided that he'd go buy some of these Mulberry harbours. And what he did is he took the teak from the Mulberry harbours and he made it into flooring. So this teak flooring here, not only is it really, really nice, is oozing history. 2.5 million troops, 500,000 tanks. And I just think it's amazing. My jaw hit the floor when I heard this, don't you? I just love it.
Which Hollywood actor or actress has had more Oscar wins than anyone else? There is one. It's not Meryl Streep, it's not Jack Nicholson, it's not Daniel Day-Lewis. They are all tied for second on 3 Oscar wins. But the greatest Hollywood performer of all time has won 4. And they won those 4 over a 48-year career. 48 years separates the first and that 4th and final win. This person also got 12 nominations. Who is it? It is Katharine Hepburn. And Katharine Hepburn regularly came and stayed at this house. And behind me, what you'll see is the old 17th century house giving way to a more modern extension that was made during the 1960s by one of this house's most infamous and famous occupiers. His name was Bill Rose, a Hollywood screenwriter extraordinaire, responsible for many of the great movies of the 1950s and 60s. And in fact, his most famous movie, and he won an Oscar for Best Screenplay for this movie, was Guess Who's Coming to Dinner in 1967, starring Katharine Hepburn, Spencer Tracy, and Sidney Poitier. And he wrote that here in La Fosse. And he developed this relationship with Katharine Hepburn, the greatest actress of all time. And she would regularly come to this house. But she had something else that she was particularly interested in. and it got her into a little bit of trouble. Let's go find out. So in the 1960s, Bill Rose would have been visited in the house behind me by Katharine Hepburn, the greatest actress of all time. Katharine loved animals, and as luck would have it, just across the road, in 1959, Gerald Durrell opened up the Jersey Zoo, which would achieve worldwide fame. In 1958, he'd gone to West Africa and come back, as you do, with a collection of animals that he'd brought. He tried to house them in a zoo and create a zoo in London, but there was way too much red tape. So he came over for a little recce to Jersey and had dinner with Sir Hugh Fraser in Orgray Manor, just behind me. And as he looked around Orgray Manor, he said to Sir Hugh, "You know what? This would be a great place for a zoo." And Hugh said, "Well, I'm looking to downsize, so do you want to buy it?" And so Gerald ended up renting it and then eventually buying it from Hugh and setting up the Jersey Zoo. So as Bill and Katharine were over there in the 1960s, they might have heard lions roar, because it used to have lions. And every morning, very, very early, there might have been a flash of yellow as the cheetahs were taken for their morning jog. But Katharine didn't want to see the big cats. Every night, she made her way over the road, climbed over the fence here, and went to the birdhouse to feed the birds. Until one night, she was caught by the bird keeper. And the bird keeper, seeing the most famous woman alive feeding birds, decided to join her. So every night they'd feed the birds together. And it wasn't until months later that Gerald Durrell found out about this and said to the bird keeper, "You bugger, why didn't you tell me that the most famous actress alive was coming? I would have turned up every night to feed the birds too." And this story is just one of the many remarkable stories of the history of this house. And it shows us how many stories there are hidden in houses all across Jersey that we're trying to uncover, that really highlight and underline one thing: how remarkable and amazing this island that we call home is.
Well, that was fun, wasn't it?
That was so much fun. This feels like the very definition of a hidden home. I mean, look at it.
Yeah, I agree. We didn't even get to show anyone the gardens, which are really, really nice.
Maybe episode 2?
Maybe episode 2. Don't forget to like and subscribe. If you think you can beat this one, then please get in touch.
No chance.